All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's product training with Blue Triangle. Today, we're going to walk through how to set up a CSP for your site using the Blue Triangle portal. And perhaps more important, after it's set up, how to monitor CSP violations and manage updates to the CSP. All right, so my name is Mark, and I'm the support manager here at Blue Triangle, and I do these trainings each week about various topics related to web performance, analytics, and ultimately how to use Blue Triangle to solve problems. So let's go ahead and get started. So for today's agenda, we're going to start with a little bit of background information, what a CSP does and why you need a CSP. And then we're really going to define what a CSP is and what it's designed to do. And then we're going to talk about the phased approach Blue Triangle uses to enable you to implement this security protection of a CSP. So we'll go through those things in a few slides here in the beginning. And then we're going to go into the Blue Triangle portal live and go ahead and set up one of these CSPs as well as a whitelist. And then finally, we're going to talk about how to ongoing monitoring and updates are going to be necessary to really have a good implementation of a CSP. So we're going to talk about how to do that with Blue Triangle as well. So I want to start today by discussing one of the more significant issues that a content security policy can address for you. And that is ad injection or customer hijacking, whereby third parties are running ads on your site through ad injection and other forms of browser extensions and things like that. So Blue Triangle CSP Manager is going to give you an automated process to take control back. Now, the secret really to effectively preventing browser ad injection, typically from malware plugins, is really through a CSP management system. And so what does that mean? Well, it's going to prevent unwanted actors from diverting the user journey. It's going to reduce page load time, which contributes to improved conversion. And the way it's going to do that is by reducing the amount of activity on your site. It's going to prevent unwanted third-party ad injection from loading on your site. It's also going to protect you from Magecart style supply chain attacks. If you're familiar with Magecart, they are one of the more notorious hacking groups. They are something that a content security policy is going to block. It's going to protect you from that style of attack. Some of our competitors are going to try to do this prevention of customer hijacking by adding JavaScript code and other things like that, and that can actually slow your site down and ultimately reduce conversion rate. Now, our approach is only going to improve your page load experience. A content security policy is simply going to block certain resources from loading on the page. So let's take a look at kind of what this looks like. So on this site, here we can see the Honey browser extension is taking up a significant amount of space on the site, as well as ads over to the left. So given the opportunity, there are places that malicious actors can put damaging ads onto your site. And this can really take over your customer journey and even help fund your competition. So this is obviously the last thing we want as an e-commerce website, right? All right, so for a little background, a CSP is designed as a security solution to prevent things like form jacking and cross-site scripting, as well as browser hijacking, ad injection, unauthorized piggyback tags. So, you may have approved a handful of tags for your site, but those tags may be loading other tags. And if one of those other tags gets compromised, you don't even know about it. You may not even know about it because you didn't explicitly approve it. And another really important point is content security policy would have prevented MageCart attacks. So MageCart is kind of notorious for attacks that ultimately skim PII or credit card information and send it to the hacker's domain, for example. So that communication to the hacker's domain would not be allowed if a content security policy was implemented on the site. So Blue Triangle automates the creation of a content security policy, and more importantly, we can monitor and alert on unauthorized domains trying to be communicated with in real time. So a little more about what a content security policy is. It's basically a standard for the web introduced to prevent these things that I've talked about, cross-site scripting and clickjacking and other code injection attacks to prevent malicious content from executing on trusted web page, right? So a content security policy is installed in your code via a meta tag or a response header, and it specifically lets the browser know what content is allowed to load and be communicated with on your site. So you may be thinking that is a tall task to get together all of the content that you know loads on your site and specify it in a content security policy. Especially it's a positively defined list, so if you don't get everything in there, it might break good content or functionality for your site. And we're going to show you in a few minutes here how Blue Triangle facilitates the creation of this, so it's much easier to build one of these and reduce any risk associated with creating and using a CSP. Another concern you might have is how difficult it's going to be to build the CSP, but also you're going to need to know when the CSP is getting violated and when maybe new content is coming out on the site, and you need to make sure the CSP gets updated to reflect that. So all of these things are going to require ongoing updates and management. But this is also something Blue Triangle is going to be able to help you to do. So what does this kind of overall process look like in Blue Triangle? So it's really a phased approach, and in the beginning you're not really concerned with the CSP necessarily. We'll get to that a little later on. But what you're going to do is basically inventory the content on your site with Blue Triangle's real user and synthetic data collection. And you're going to review the domains that are loading on your site. And so what we're going to do here is approve or reject all of these domains that we see. The security and tag manager approvals, we think it's important to have two different sets of eyes approving these things to make sure, the security manager, security admin may not want particular tags on the site that the tag manager does, and they can discuss those discrepancies there. So once you complete that process, which is something you can do in Blue Triangle, you're going to have a whitelist, a domain whitelist. So already this is something that you'll be able to alert and monitor in Blue Triangle. You don't even need a CSP deployed on your site. You'll just have this whitelist, and given Blue Triangle's data collection from RUM and synthetic data, you'll be able to set yourself up to get notified whenever there's violations to this whitelist that you've created. All right, so the next phase here in phase 2, we're going to move into the CSP, and essentially you're going to just drop that domain whitelist into a CSP. Now, you may be wondering why we're focused on domains instead of files and content at the file level. We believe the amount of effort required to specify every single individual file and resource loading on your site is not something worth shooting for, especially if you have hashed file names and things of that nature, where it's always going to be something different, and you're going to have loads of trouble it's going to be herding cats. So, and the other side of the coin here is you want to have more than just, you can put a CSP in your site and set it up to upgrade insecure requests, for example, from HTTP to HTTPS. Now, that's a content security policy implementation, but to really effectively implement security, you need to specify domains. You need to implement a domain level blocking content security policy. So that's how we arrive at the focus on the domains. So what you can do is take that whitelist from phase 1, and in phase 2 we're just going to drop it into a CSP, and you can set up your CSP to only report errors instead of actually blocking any content from loading. So and that's called monitor mode. So in phase 2 you set it up in monitor mode, and you're able to review the violations that come in and tune your CSP as necessary. And then finally in phase 3 you'll deploy it in blocking mode, which is actually going to block the content that is not listed in your CSP. And ultimately the bottom half of phase 3 there is where we're going to live, is reviewing the violations and ongoing tuning and updates as necessary as the site changes over time. So as far as the pre-work stage, this is what the domain approval looks like in Blue Triangle. We're going to get to it here live in just a second, but I just wanted to kind of point out a few things. Each of these rows here is a domain to be reviewed. There's a column for the security admin to approve and the tag management admin to approve it. Now, over to the left, you're going to see a percentage of BTT index that this domain is loading on. And this gives you, Blue Triangle's index has over 6,000 sites, e-commerce websites. And this gives you context for the prevalence of this domain. And, depending on your familiarity with the domain and the percentage listed on over there of the BTT index, you can feel more comfortable approving domains knowing that it's on many other sites, for example. The other thing is you're able to see whether the domain has been observed in RUM or synthetic data. So with our synthetic data, this is a controlled clean room environment, so you're not going to have any sort of data from browser extensions and plugins and ad injections and things like that you might with real user data. The last thing I want to point out is the source types. So you're actually able to define what kinds of content, what kinds of files are able to load from these domains. So you may approve the domain, but you know that only images come from a particular domain. So you can go in, uncheck that all box, and go over to specify just images here. All right, so I'm going to walk through this live now in Blue Triangle. So we're going to start with the services and CSP management overview. To get here, I am, if you go down to the icon that looks like a lock, just click that and click on the overview page. So what we're looking at here is kind of the CSP workflow, if you will. There's data collection in the beginning, then we run through the domain approval process, and then we're going to generate and implement the CSP, and then ultimately monitor for ongoing violations and etc. So over here with data collection, I've set up a synthetic monitor to hit just one of our demo websites. So for the sake of our walkthrough today, we're just going to be creating a CSP for this one particular page. Otherwise, it might take us a while to run through, hundreds of domains together. But if you did have, as you are working through this, we understand you probably have hundreds of domains to review. And the important thing is, with the combination of Blue Triangle's real user and synthetic data, it's really a holistic view of the activity on your site. You get everything from real user data, and then from synthetic data, you're able to see what's what's going on in the clean room environment versus what's happening out in the wild. So if we look at the domain approval process, we can see all of these domains are pending. I'm just going to open this up and click Review All Domains. So this is the window or screen we were looking at on the slides just now. So you're able to sort on each of these columns. You can check these boxes to choose specific source types. For example, for the sake of running through this quickly, I'm just going to run through and approve these domains, but you can in fact run through and reject these domains as necessary. So on our demo website, we have Google, we have Blue Triangle, and we have a WordPress demo theme called Futurio or Futurio. Yeah, so I'm going to approve these. Obviously, this isn't going to be a quick process initially to approve and review all of these domains, but once you get past that, you'll be able to do this much more quickly. All right, so we've approved all of our domains, and I'm going to hit Save Changes down here. So now we can see there are now 14 approved domains and 0 rejected domains of our total 14 domains. Now I actually have looked through this list and confirmed that these are all domains that we want to see in our content security policy and all domains that we want to load on our site. So after we do that, we're simply going to go over to the Generate and Implement a CSP button here. So on this page, we do recommend that you make sure that there are no pending domains that may be necessary for your site to function. So be sure to double check that before you implement the CSP. But feel free to create demo CSPs. You don't have to instantly deploy the CSP once it's created in Blue Triangle. This is just where you can build it. And shortly here, I'll show you how to access your CSPs via our API for a quick kind of programmatic implementation, so you don't have to go in and copy and paste what you see here. So I'm going to click Create New CSP, and that's going to open up this form down here. We're going to give it a name. Mark's Demo CSP. So what we're looking at here is all of the approved domains. If there were any pending or rejected domains, they would show up over here to the right. And what we can do is move them from the not used in CSP column to the used in CSP column just by clicking this button, or you can click and drag them over individually. Also, it's really nice you're able to see what source types are allowed for each of these domains. So I'm going to move them all over, and we're going to run down and adjust some settings here. So right now it's in blocking mode. We just want to set it up in monitoring mode at first. Okay, so we're just going to turn that on to use monitoring mode. I won't go through all of these options here, but we do have plenty of configuration capability. If there's anything that you know that you need to have to effectively implement your CSP, and we don't have it, or you're not sure how to enable it, just reach out to us and we're happy to help you out. So we set it to monitoring mode, and down here before we even create it, this is where you're able to see what the CSP is going to look like. So finally, to create the CSP, you're just going to click this green button here, and that's going to do it for you. This is version 1 any additional changes. Let's say we want to get rid of btttag.com and then hit save. That's going to be now version 2. And you'll be able to jump from version 1 to version 2 just by going like this. All right. You can run down here and hit copy to snag that. You're also able to look at your whitelist here as well. And you can export it to CSV. So how would you pull that from our API? So if you jump over to our Help Center and go under Documentation and API Documentation, we have a Content Security Policy endpoint. This gives you all the details about accessing your CSPs from the API. But probably the most common request is, how do I pull the latest version of a CSP, right? So that example is here. And essentially you're going to specify the ID and then the query parameter version equals latest. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about is how to monitor CSP violations and make ongoing updates. So with the API, so I've already kind of talked about how to update your CSP just by making changes here and hitting save. You're automatically going to get a new version, and so you won't need to change any code to pull the latest version of the API. But as far as how to get notified when there's domain violations, you're going to want to go into your profile and you're going to want to run down to the email notifications and make sure these two boxes are checked: approved domain whitelist violations and content security policy violations. So be sure to check those, and you'll be delivered emails if there's any violations to those. All right, let's see here. The last thing I wanted to point out was on the services and CSP management overview. This is a nice screen to have up if you're interested in looking at your CSP violations. They're going to pop up right here, and you'll be able to jump in and investigate. If you need to make a change to your whitelist, you can do that quickly through here. You can make changes at any time. I think that about covers it. Thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope you really learned a lot about Blue Triangle's CSP management solution. And I'm going to pause now and check the questions and see if there's anything I can help answer for you guys. So I don't see any questions so far, and that's okay because we're a few minutes from our time here. But just thanks again, everyone, for your time. And if you do have any more questions, we're happy to speak with you offline. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can reach us at any of the emails listed here. Of course, support is support@bluetriangle.com. And you can also submit a request or a question in our help center at help.bluetriangle.com. All right, guys, thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.